No matter what anybody tells you, the market is legit. Oh, that's not going to work. Hold on. It's too, the board's too gray. Hold on. All right. Long term, the market is bullish, okay? Because people are greedy, okay? And until the world's economy collapses, the market, especially the US market with all the liquidity it has, is going to be bullish. There are going to be bearish times, but it is always going to be bullish, okay? What I was talking about, what I was looking at this weekend is I was looking at several companies, including Microsoft, Google, which is my favorite right now, talking about Apple, talking about Nvidia, Tesla, etc. Okay? And one thing that we were looking at is a lot of them are doing job cuts, right? So number one is we are seeing cuts to workforce. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, Stocky, that's very bearish. Yes, but a lot of those cuts that they're doing to their workforce are hires that they made during COVID, when they had the expansion of work from home, and when they had more capital flowing around, and everybody, retail traders were in here buying up every fucking offering that was happening. Stock splits were everywhere. SPACs were going nuts, right? Money was flowing like crazy. They were taking out PPP loans. They were getting just basically cheap-ass money from large banks and stuff like that. So we saw this cut. So that's bad, but it's not like, okay, they're cutting all their workforce. And what does cutting your workforce do, especially if you consider them non-essential? It keeps more cash on hand. And what's the number one way for a company to survive a recession, other than not just, being a niche streamer, is to have cash on hand. You got to be able to pay your motherfucking bills. You got to have money. Or if you are like one of the real big boys, you could just, call in some loans or something. Like, I asked to borrow some money from Apple, borrowing from like Microsoft based on like some kind of, well, not like direct borrowing, but like, you know what I mean? Like offering up shares or whatever you can do. I mean, there's some shady shit that goes on, but regardless, the number one way for a company to survive is to have cash on hand. And if you think a recession is coming, recession coming, or you're expecting flatline, you want to have cash on hand. So you start making drastic cuts now. So we've already seen a lot of these guys do this. We saw Microsoft cutting off some of theirs. We saw Apple. Some of these guys are cutting some workforce right now, okay? Number two, what's another bearish thing that we're seeing right now? Softer guidance. Now, personally, for me, I love Google because I think that, inflation and supply chain disruptions are going to affect them a lot less than something like Amazon. Amazon has to worry about, they have the AWS and they have all these other businesses right now, but they're burning through a lot of cash. And they have to worry more about inflation because obviously prices, they have to either eat them or pass them on to the consumer, and consumers will look elsewhere, or supply chain issues. You don't get shit out there. FedEx just did that. FedEx just came out and said, hey, supply chain issues, we're fucked, right? Like the world's going to hell, okay? Softer guidance. Number three, antitrust. This is what no one's talking about right now. Now, they're doing everything they can to throw a shitload of money to stop antitrust hearings, and it's working. So good on them, right? It's causing them, when you see these little lines in the EBITDA, or for the rest of you guys in their earnings statements, okay? You see like these numbers of like cash burn, right? You see like cost of whatever, whether it's, cost of revenue, cost of whatever. The amount of money that these guys are throwing at lobbyists right now to stop or at least delay the Senate from hearing these antitrust hearings is ridiculous. But if you get hit with an antitrust hearing in the middle of a global inflationary, I don't want to call it meltdown, but inflationary problem, and there's a recession, and people that don't have money are not going to give a shit about you, and Congress wants to get reelected, they're going to go after you and look like they're looking out for the little guy who's hurting in these big corporations, whatever. You're fucked. So you overpay to push this shit off, right? And it's working. I mean, we saw Klobuchar and others come out and say, we want to have this antitrust hearing, but these guys are spending so much money and it's working, okay? So these are all very bearish things, right? But at the same time, what I'm looking at with these companies is they're still poor. They're cutting their cash burn. They're shoring up capital. They're keeping themselves afloat for moving through. Some of them are overpaying for different companies. Adobe, I'm looking at you. But cash flow is still there. They're still holding on to it. And they've some of them have done splits. Some of them can do, buybacks. A lot of them, we've had a all-time record in stock buybacks this past year. As the stock market has fallen down and these guys still have cash left over. The problem is, though, is that some of these companies are being stupid. They're taking that cash on hand and they're buying back all their stocks without the contingency plan of what if we go into a recession or we flatline for 3 years. Then you're not going to have any cash on hand. Then you have to do a stock offering, but you have to do with the offering at a lower valuation and you'll lose more money. So there's a little bit of concern there. All right, I'm getting off track here. My whole point is that I haven't changed my outlook completely, but what I was looking at was I was looking at a lot of these guys and saying, okay, there's some downside here, but these are the big boys. These guys aren't going anywhere. There's always going to be buyers, okay? Unless you're Meta, but you deserve to die long ago. The moment you killed MySpace, you signed your death warrant. Fuck you, Zuckerberg. I'm actually moving into I know half the internet thinks that we're going to do this. Okay. The other half of the internet thinks we're going to do this. I don't know what we're going to do. I'm still long-term bullish. But based on what I've seen over the past 6 months, what the Fed's doing, the fact that inflation is still going up, Ukraine and everything like that, but that these companies are kind of too big to fail kind of thing, I think we're going to do this for a year. I think we're going to go 2009 to 2011. I think we're just going to flat chop. We're going to range between, I don't know, 410 and 380. I don't know. I think we're going to range for a year. We'll have some breakouts above and some breakouts below, but this is just going to be a shitty, flat, choppy year. I don't know if that's going to stay in line. We don't know. Anything can happen between now and then, you know? But it just feels like this is going to be what we see for the next year until the Fed gets to their terminal rate, which most people are thinking is 4.25 to 4.5%. How long does that terminal rate last? And when they start cutting, that's when we start seeing movement. But I'm not telling you guys to go out and play straddles or to sell covered calls. I'm not telling you guys to do anything, okay? You guys have to, this could change. I haven't even fully gotten on board with this, but I'm starting to move more towards this flatline, no growth, stagnant market where we see some weeks up 5%, some week down, where everyone gets wrecked except for people that are just day trading or people that are just long term. But, and I know y'all are going to say, well, Stocky, I knew there was something to this. But do you know what performs extremely fucking well during markets like this? Motherfucking divvies, man. I don't work for Big Divvy, okay? I don't have an agenda. Divvies will hold their value flat and collect that fucking extra shares the whole time. Dividends, boring. I love who the guy who has like a 90% down portfolio from trying to like take the crazy plays and the get rich shit is sleeping on the divvies, and yet I've got like so many extra free fucking shares over here. I'm just like, that's cool. And then when the market does rebound in a year or so, you take all that extra fucking capital you have, because remember, in your Roth, you don't have to pay taxes on those divvies. You sell all those free shares you had, now you got capital to ride that bitch back up. Ooh la la.